Welcome to Mindset Capital TV, where mindset meets money. This channel is built for thinkers, builders, and future leaders who understand that wealth starts in the mind. If you're ready to level up your thinking, your habits, and your income, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Why most people never invest. A money and wealth thinking documentary. There's a reason most people never invest. And it's not money. It's not intelligence. It's not access. It's something far more dangerous. Most people don't avoid investing because they can't. They avoid it because it forces them to confront something uncomfortable. Their future. Investing is a decision that says, I believe tomorrow matters. And most people are too busy surviving today to think that way. But here's the truth. The difference between someone who builds wealth and someone who doesn't isn't income. It's psychology. Because investing isn't a financial decision. It's an identity decision. And once you understand the real reason most people never invest, you'll never look at money the same way again. The first lie we're taught about money. From a young age, we're taught a simple formula. Work hard. Get paid. Repeat. Nobody teaches compounding. Nobody teaches ownership. Nobody teaches leverage. We're trained to trade time for income. So when someone says invest, most people subconsciously hear, risk what you work for. And risk feels irresponsible. Because the system rewarded obedience, not ownership. Think about it. We were taught, save money, avoid mistakes, don't lose what you have. But investing requires delayed gratification, tolerating uncertainty, accepting short-term volatility. That feels foreign. So people default to what feels safe. Cash in the bank. Stable paycheck. Predictable routine. It feels secure. But what feels secure is often the most expensive choice. Fear disguised as logic. Ask most people why they don't invest. They'll give you logical answers. I don't know enough. I don't want to lose money. I'll start when I have more. Sounds reasonable. But underneath every one of those statements is the same emotion. Fear. Fear of looking stupid. Fear of losing control. Fear of making a mistake. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people would rather guarantee smallness than risk temporary embarrassment. Investing forces you to admit something. You don't control everything. And most people are addicted to control. So they avoid investing, not because it's irrational, but because uncertainty makes them uncomfortable. The comfort trap. Comfort is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. It whispers, you're fine. And fine is where dreams go to die. Most people never invest because they're comfortable enough. Bills paid. Food on the table. Weekend entertainment. There's no urgency. But here's the invisible danger. Comfort kills long-term thinking. Investing requires discomfort. It requires saying, I could spend this now, but I won't. That decision feels small in the moment, but repeated over years, it changes everything. The identity gap. Most people don't see themselves as investors. That's the real reason. They think investors are wealthy. Investors understand markets. Investors take risks. They don't associate that identity with themselves. So even if they have money, they don't act. Because behavior follows identity. If you see yourself as careful, conservative, just getting by, you won't behave like someone building assets. Investing isn't about numbers. It's about who you believe you are allowed to become. Why paycheck thinking is addictive. Paychecks are predictable. Predictability feels safe. You work. You get paid. You repeat. There's immediate reward. Investing is the opposite. You invest. You wait. You doubt. You wait more. No instant gratification. No guaranteed applause. Just time. And time is uncomfortable. Because waiting requires faith. Most people trust employers more than they trust markets. But here's the twist. The employer can fire you. The market doesn't care about you. And ironically, that indifference makes it more reliable long-term. The pain of short-term volatility. When markets drop, people panic. Because humans are wired to feel loss twice as intensely as gain. A 20% drop hurts, more than a 20% rise feels good. So when investments fluctuate, the emotional brain screams, "Get out." But wealth builders understand something critical. Volatility is the price of admission. You don't get long-term growth without short-term uncertainty. Most people want returns without discomfort. But discomfort is the entry fee. The real reason: delayed gratification. This entire conversation comes down to one skill: delayed gratification. Can you sacrifice today for a bigger tomorrow? Most people say yes, but behavior says no. Because the brain prefers certainty now over possibility later. And investing is built on possibility, not guarantees. That's terrifying to someone trained for stability. The subconscious wealth ceiling. Most people don't consciously decide to stay small. They unconsciously decide not to rise. There's an invisible ceiling built from childhood conversations. Money changes people. Rich people are greedy. Be realistic. Don't aim too high. These phrases don't disappear. They sit quietly in the background. And when investing becomes an option, the mind whispers, "Who do you think you are?" Investing implies ownership. Ownership implies growth. Growth implies wealth. And wealth threatens identity. If your internal identity is, "I'm just trying to survive," you will subconsciously sabotage any move toward expansion. Because expansion feels unfamiliar. And the brain prefers familiar discomfort over unfamiliar growth. Social gravity. Humans are tribal. We adapt to the financial norms around us. If no one in your circle invests, investing feels abnormal. If no one talks about assets, assets feel irrelevant. Most people don't resist investing alone. They resist being different. Because investing changes conversations. It changes spending habits. It changes priorities. It changes future planning. And that shift can make you stand out. And standing out can feel like betrayal. So many people unconsciously choose belonging over leverage. They choose comfort in similarity over discomfort in growth. Social gravity is powerful. It pulls you back toward average. The misunderstanding of risk. Ask someone why they don't invest. They'll say, "It's risky." But what is risk? Most people define risk as volatility. But real risk is something else. Real risk is depending on a single income source, having no assets, letting inflation erode savings, aging without leverage. But those risks are invisible. And invisible risks feel safe. Market fluctuations are visible. Headlines are loud. Red numbers are dramatic. So the brain reacts to visible danger while ignoring structural danger. That's the trap. Most people are terrified of temporary loss, but comfortable with permanent stagnation. Why financial education isn't enough. Information is everywhere. You can learn investing in a weekend. You can watch tutorials, read articles, study strategies. So why doesn't everyone do it? Because information doesn't override identity. You can understand compounding intellectually and still not act. Because action requires belief. Belief that you deserve growth. You can handle uncertainty. You won't panic at volatility. You're capable of thinking long-term. Most people don't lack knowledge. They lack psychological readiness. And readiness doesn't come from charts. It comes from internal permission. The moment everything changes, there's a moment, small but powerful, when someone becomes an investor. It doesn't happen at a certain income. It doesn't happen at a specific age. It happens when a person realizes, "I don't want to work forever." That realization shifts perspective. Investing stops feeling optional. It becomes necessary, not out of fear, but out of responsibility. That's the turning point. When someone sees time as limited and leverage as required, that's when they cross the line. Why most people never cross it. Crossing into investing requires short-term sacrifice, emotional stability, patience without validation, faith in long-term systems. Most people hesitate at the edge. They tell themselves, "I'll start next month." after I get a raise, when things feel stable. But stability never arrives in perfect form. And the longer they wait, the harder it becomes to start. Because inaction compounds too. Years pass quietly, and the opportunity cost grows silently. The cost of waiting. The biggest loss in investing isn't market crashes. It's time. Compounding needs duration. The earlier you start, the less you need to contribute. The later you start, the harder you must push. But humans discount the future heavily. 10 years feels abstract. Retirement feels distant. Old age feels theoretical. So they delay. And delay is expensive. Not emotionally, financially. What investors understand that others don't. The tree grows strong. Investors understand something simple. Money grows when it works. Employees work for money. Investors let money work for them. That shift in perspective changes everything. They don't see investing as gambling. They see it as participation. Participation in businesses. Participation in innovation. Participation in economic growth. They understand they're not betting. They're owning. Ownership is powerful. And powerful things take patience. The scarcity operating system. Scarcity isn't about income. It's about mental bandwidth. When someone grows up in an environment where money feels fragile, where bills feel urgent, where survival is the priority, the brain adapts. It becomes excellent at short-term problem solving, but terrible at long-term strategy. Scarcity thinking says, secure today, forget tomorrow. Investing requires the opposite. It requires stepping out of survival mode. And survival mode is addictive, because when you've spent years fighting fires, peace feels unfamiliar. So even when income increases, the operating system remains the same. Spend quickly. Protect tightly. Avoid uncertainty. Scarcity thinking doesn't disappear automatically. It must be replaced deliberately. And most people never realize it's running in the background. The emotional rejection of wealth. Some people don't avoid investing because they fear losing money. They avoid it because wealth feels threatening. Wealth changes identity. It changes expectations. It changes relationships. It forces new standards. And not everyone is ready for that shift. If deep down someone believes, people like me don't become wealthy, then investing feels like betrayal. It feels like stepping outside your assigned role. And the subconscious mind resists that violently, because identity stability feels safer than expansion. So they say, I'm not into stocks. I'm not that type. I don't care about that stuff. But beneath that dismissal is discomfort. Discomfort with growth. Why busy people don't invest. Another quiet truth. Busyness protects people from long-term thinking. When you're constantly occupied, you don't have to confront the bigger questions. You don't have to ask, is my current path sustainable? What will this look like in 20 years? Am I building leverage? Busyness creates the illusion of progress. But movement isn't leverage. Investing forces you to slow down, to calculate, to project, to imagine decades ahead. And that kind of thinking feels heavy. So people avoid it. Because urgency feels productive. Long-term planning feels abstract. The instant gratification economy. We live in an economy designed to encourage spending. Notifications, sales, upgrades, subscriptions. Everything is engineered for now. Investing competes against dopamine. And dopamine usually wins. When someone gets extra money, the brain says, reward yourself. Very rarely does it say, delay reward for a decade. And because gratification is available instantly, delayed gratification feels unnatural. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Wealth is built by people who consistently choose the unnatural option. They say no when yes feels easier. They delay when spending feels tempting. That discipline compounds silently. The myth of, when I have more. Many people believe, I'll invest when I make more. But income doesn't create investors. Identity does. If someone doesn't invest when they have little, they usually won't invest when they have more. Because lifestyle expands with income. Spending rises. Standards rise. Expenses rise. And the habit of investing never forms. Investing is not about amount. It's about pattern. A small amount consistently invested beats a large amount never started. But starting feels insignificant. And humans undervalue small beginnings. The turning point. Shifting from consumer to owner. There's a moment when someone stops thinking like a consumer and starts thinking like an owner. That shift changes everything. Consumers ask, "What can I buy?" Owners ask, "What can I build?" Consumers measure wealth by lifestyle. Owners measure wealth by assets. Consumers focus on visible upgrades. Owners focus on invisible leverage. When that internal switch flips, investing stops feeling risky. It feels responsible. Why the first investment is the hardest. The first investment feels terrifying. Not because of the money, because it signals commitment. It signals, I'm no longer just earning, I'm building. And building carries responsibility. Once you start, you can't pretend you don't know. You can't claim ignorance. You've crossed the line. And psychologically, that's heavy. But after the first investment, the fear decreases. Confidence grows. Momentum builds. The hardest step isn't the market. It's identity transformation. If this video shifted your mindset, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Remember, your mindset is your greatest asset. Protect it. Build it. Invest in it. This is Mindset Capital TV. We'll see you in the next one.